I didn't know it yet, but the Halloween party was about to flip my entire life inside out. One minute, the principal was cheerfully announcing a school-wide costume weekend. The next, the whole building buzzed like we were gearing up for some kind of teenage masquerade showdown. Friday in costume, Saturday the big party. Everyone already bragging about their superhero outfits, anime armor, and retro video game characters. Everyone except me. I stood there empty-handed, allergic to comic books, clueless about anime, and painfully aware that my imagination was about as useful as a broken flashlight. I was ready to sit the whole thing out until my sometimes girlfriend Lisa leaned in with that mischievous smile she saves for bad ideas. "Go as a girl," she said. And just like that, the fuse was lit. At first, I said no. Then, after I told Mom what she said, she agreed. Now, I had never once dressed as a girl, so I expected to become the bride of Frankenstein, which in this case would not be all that bad. Mom took a few measurements, and I forgot about it. 3 weeks from now, she told me, you would be the prettiest girl at the party. Right. My sister is away at college, so I was sure Mom would borrow some of her things to turn me into a girl, and I was hoping Mom did not make me wear one of those micro minis Emily likes. I did not tell anyone, including Lisa, that I had agreed to dress as a girl. I did not want the flack I was sure I would get. The weekend before the party, Mom helped me prepare my skin so it would be smooth for the costume. On the bed were a bunch of clothes for me to try on. "I wanted to get you all dressed up so we could see how you look and make any corrections we need to make," Mom said. What could I say? Mom insisted that I go all the way, which meant wearing the proper undergarments as well. The nylon against my skin gave me the shivers. I expected to have a standard bra given to me, but she dug out a white shapewear bodice. Not realizing what it is used for, I was unprepared when, after I fastened the hooks, she adjusted the laces so tight I could hardly breathe. Then, as my waist grew smaller, the garment adjusted my posture and shape until the bodice was filled out. Mom stuffed soft padding into the cups, creating a feminine silhouette. When I sat at her vanity, she showed me how to apply makeup. I had to do it myself, but Mom stood right there coaching me. First, the foundation from a new jar. Mom told me it matched my skin tone, and as I drew it across my face, I could see that she was right. With just a little foundation, my shadow disappeared from sight. Then the translucent powder, which made my skin look softer and less shiny. The eyeshadow I used first was a soft mint green, which I put right on the edge of my eyelids. Then a soft gray, and right under each eyebrow a thin line of coral blusher. Black eyeliner, which went on easily, then a black pencil under each eye to finish outlining them, and Mom said that was enough for now. With just that much makeup on, I could see that I did not look like the bride of Frankenstein, but scarier. A rather cute girl. Then came the hosiery, which felt smooth on my legs, and finally, the dress was slipped over my head and zipped up. Mom told me it is called a sheath. It has a square-cut neckline, no sleeves, and the hem hit about mid-thigh. Mom said that red is the perfect color for me. Then, as I sat at the vanity again, an auburn wig was placed on my head, secured, and brushed out. When I looked in the mirror, I was shocked, but Mom did not give me time to look at myself. As the wig settled into place, everything around me seemed to shift, as if the room itself leaned in to watch what I had just become. Mom moved with this brisk confidence, guiding me from step to step before doubt could creep in. She circled me once, tugging lightly at the hem, straightening the neckline, smoothing the fabric over the bodice, until the dress hugged me like it had been waiting on a hanger for someone exactly my size. I tried to swallow, but the laced bodice made every breath feel narrow and precise, like I had been drafted into a new posture I hadn't earned yet. She asked me to stand, turn, walk a few steps. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, wrapped in silky nylon that whispered with every movement. Each small step made the sheath glide over me, warm and unfamiliar, and my reflection, what little of it I managed to catch in passing, tilted the world even more. I wasn't just playing dress up. I was slipping, inch by inch, into a completely different version of myself, one I hadn't dared imagine outside of jokes or dares. Mom kept adjusting me with the same calm precision she used when hemming drapes or icing birthday cakes. She nudged my chin up, fluffed the wig's bangs, and dabbed a fingertip under one eye where my liner had smudged. Even the smallest touch from her seemed to push me further along a path I didn't understand, but couldn't step away from. When she finally stepped back, hands on hips, she exhaled softly as if unveiling her latest project. And I stood there, trying not to panic at how easily the image in the mirror could pass for someone who belonged in that dress, in that makeup, in that skin. I quickly had earrings, a watch, a necklace, then heels on. She handed me the bright red lipstick, and when I had traced the waxy red on my lips, she spritzed me with perfume and told me to look in the mirror. I was speechless. My hair fell above my shoulders, curled on the ends, framing my face in delicate wisps of bangs that cut across my forehead in a sweep to one side. I actually had a feminine shape. My legs, once just average, now looked fabulous. Shapely, the nylons hinted at a shimmer whenever I moved, and the heels, while tight, completed the outfit perfectly. Mom merely stood next to me smiling before she dropped her bombshell. I know those heels are tight, but that is all I have. I thought we could go to the store and find a pair that fits you better. What? I am not leaving the house this way. And why not? Take another look and tell me you look like yourself. I did not look my old self, and we both knew it, so she handed me a purse. Then, with a gentle shove, I was on my way out of the house. On the way to the store, she told me it would be easier on me to try on women's shoes dressed as a woman, which made sense, so I quit gripping. I did not lose my fear, though. We had to park towards the rear of the lot, and by the time I was in the store, my feet hurt, and I really understood what she meant when she told me I needed comfortable shoes since I would be on my feet all evening. A clerk measured my foot, told me I wore a size 9. Then Mom and I began to look at all of the styles. Since I had no idea what to get, I let her lead the way. I had a pair of red heels with an ankle strap to them in my hand when I saw Lisa walk in. My entire system went on high alert when she walked right past me without even a single glance my way. Mom saw Lisa walk by, and I saw her smile at me and nod her head. When we left the store, I had the red heels plus a pair in black in my hand and a pair of plain black flats on my feet. "See, I told you that you looked fine," Mom said. "Lisa did not recognize you, and she knows you quite well." That one experience made me feel a lot better about dressing as a girl, and I relaxed a little. Mom made one stop on the way home. Then, when we pulled in the driveway, I saw Emily's car there. "Remember, your name is Jessica. Let us see what Emily does." "Okay, Mom." When we walked in the house, I followed Mom, leaving the shoes in the car. Emily said hi, then Mom introduced me as Jessica. There was a long pause before Emily started squealing. She figured it out. As I stood there and let Emily stare, I began to actually like the way I looked. I smelled the perfume, tasted the lipstick, and felt the air as it wafted around my legs and felt a sense of calm. Emily wanted all the details, so Mom filled her in while I listened. That is when Emily suggested that we all go out to dinner as 3 ladies, of course. "I have just the right dress for Jessica to wear, Mom." The black one. "Of course," Mom said yes, and I was soon handed a dress to wear that night. Looking at the clock, I had about 3 hours to kill, and Emily wanted me to try on some more of her clothes, so she and I went to her bedroom. When I slipped the dress off, she was surprised by the transformation the shapewear provided, but all I did was smile at her. She showed me several outfits, holding them up to see how they would look. It was fun in a way. As Emily flitted from drawer to closet like a personal stylist with too much caffeine, I stood there barefoot and still half stunned by how quickly the afternoon had turned into a full-blown makeover marathon. Each outfit she lifted toward me seemed to come with its own little fantasy. a spark in her eyes that imagined who Jessica could be in that moment. A soft cardigan made her giggle about brunch dates. A fitted skirt turned into talk of job interviews I didn't have. And a floral blouse apparently meant I belonged in some sunlit cafe, twirling a spoon in my latte like a woman with secrets. I found myself laughing more than I expected, loosening up as the hours inched by. The shapewear held me in place, sculpting me with a confidence I didn't entirely understand, but didn't dare question. Moving through her room, feeling the brush of fabrics against my skin, I realized I was no longer flinching at the idea of being seen. Instead, this small private world, Emily's messy bed, her posters, her closet bursting with color, felt strangely safe, like a cocoon where nothing could go wrong as long as she kept smiling at me like that. Every so often, she'd step back and study me with this thrilled intensity, as if she were watching a character she loved come to life line by line. She made little sounds of approval, tiny hums and nods, and I felt myself warming to the attention, leaning into it almost instinctively. The dress for dinner hung on the closet door, waiting for its moment, and even though part of me still screamed that this was temporary, another quiet part settled in, liking how Jessica was treated, admired, fussed over. By the time Emily finally paused long enough to breathe, both of us were flushy from excitement, me from the dizzying realization that I no longer looked like someone playing dress-up. I looked like someone who belonged in her mirror. I stood there in one of her trial outfits, watching my reflection shift and soften, and felt the edges of my old self blur just a little more. The first skirt she gave me was a pleated green and white plaid wrap around with a white blouse. Then there was a sundress, a tiny scrap of material. When I had that one on and looked in the mirror, I almost said I would wear it to the party, but of course, it would be too cold out for that. But it did make me look good. After that came a nice pink suit with a straight skirt. Then she gave me the black dress to try on. It looked pretty small to me, but as it slipped over my head and Emily zipped it up, I saw that it fit just right. Strapless, I worried that the top would fall down, but of course, it did not. The bodice was tight around me, the skirt flaring out, then ending just above my knees. With my black heels, it looked spectacular on me. Emily quickly gave me different earrings, a choker necklace, and an ankle bracelet to wear. I asked her to unzip me, then went to my room to shave again. If I was going out, I wanted to look perfect. As I stood there in just the undergarments, wearing the wig and still with makeup, I looked in the mirror and wondered to myself why it meant so much to me to look so nice tonight. I could easily wash up and wear slacks and a jacket, but I found myself wanting to wear the black dress. I want to look elegant and smell of perfume. I never did this before, so why now? And why do I feel this way? I was sure that I liked girls. I could not undo the laces, so I left the bodice on and washed off the makeup and shaved again, but closer this time. With a robe on, I went back to Emily's room, where she watched me as I once again applied my makeup. This time, I managed to do it with only minor changes. Like eyeshadow color, Emily suggested copper, with light gray and silver. It was dramatic, that is for sure. She also suggested that I wear fake nails, so when I said why not, she quickly attached them, filed them down, and painted them bright red. As I sat there waiting for the polish to dry, Emily started to get ready. She showered and then helped me get the dress on, fastened the choker necklace for me, and I went back to my room to finish getting ready. Once I was done, I went to Mom's room, knocked on the door, borrowed her perfume, and accepted the black purse she gave me. I was in the family room when Mom and Emily walked in. Emily wore her green dress, which is similar to the one I have on, while Mom wore a sheath dress in royal blue. Mom handed me the car keys, so for the first time, I drove a car wearing heels. It was not that bad, and I quickly adapted to it. When I pulled up at the restaurant, I slid out of the car carefully. Mom said nothing about it as we walked into the restaurant. We were seated in a timely manner, then treated like royalty. As my male self, I had never been treated this way and wondered why. But Emily and Mom took it all in stride. Dinner was served. Then, while we waited for dessert, some guy came to the table and asked Mom to dance. As he led her away, Emily pointed at two guys headed our way. "Get ready, Jessica. We are about to be asked to dance." She was right, of course. She took one guy's hand, leaving me with almost no choice at all, so I took the offered hand and let him lead me to the floor. He held me politely. Taller than I am, I had to look up a little to see him. Green eyes, perfectly straight teeth, brown hair, and a charming smile. He said his name was Kevin. He guided me onto the dance floor with a steadiness that made my pulse flicker in ways I was not prepared for. The music wasn't loud, just a warm hum that wrapped around us as his hand settled lightly at my waist. The touch was gentle, respectful, yet enough to make the bodice tighten around my ribs, as if reminding me that I was fully committed to this role now. I placed my hand on his shoulder, feeling the fabric of his shirt beneath my palm, and tried to ignore the way my fingers trembled ever so slightly. Moving in those heels, with the skirt flaring softly each time he turned us, felt almost natural, which startled me more than his smile. He kept the pace slow, giving me time to adjust, and when our eyes met again, something inside me swayed in rhythm with the music. His voice was low, easy, and every time he said my name, Jessica, it landed with a warm weight I could feel down to my toes. For a moment, the room blurred at the edges, the clink of dishes and chatter fading until there was only the circle of space we shared, lit by soft lights and the gentle rise and fall of our steps. I found myself talking without thinking, answering his questions with a confidence I didn't know I could fake. He complimented my dress, the way the color suited me, and before I could overthink it, I laughed a light, unfamiliar sound that drifted between us like something I had borrowed from the woman I appeared to be. The perfume I'd borrowed from Mom floated each time he spun me, brushing against him in a subtle cloud I hoped masked the thundering of my heart. There was a moment, brief but electric, when he leaned in just slightly, not enough to cross any lines, just enough for me to feel the warmth of him, and I had to remind myself to breathe. The shapewear cinched my waist, the fake nails gleamed under the low lights, and every inch of me felt constructed, arranged, yet somehow more real than the version I had always shown the world. When the song shifted to something faster, he simply guided us into the next rhythm, like this was the most natural thing to do. And perhaps it was, because I followed with surprising grace, my body learning on its own, adjusting, responding. For the first time all evening, I felt a flicker of fear melt into something else, curiosity, maybe, or the dizzy thrill of slipping into a life I never expected to try on, let alone enjoy. I told him mine. Then, when the music stopped, he escorted me back to the table, kissed my hand, and drifted away into the crowd as though the moment had been choreographed just for us. I tried to keep my face composed, but inside everything fluttered wildly, my pulse still tapping the rhythm of the song against my ribs. Emily shot me a knowing look, one eyebrow raised, her smile saying everything she didn't dare voice in public. Later, as we drove home under the glow of streetlights, Mom casually announced she had a date the next day. Her voice carried a softness I hadn't heard in months, something hopeful. I felt a warm rush of happiness for her, and judging by Emily's grin, she felt the same. Dad's departure the year before had carved a silence through the house, and hearing Mom sound excited again felt like fresh air blowing through a room we'd kept shut too long. That night, when Emily helped me loosen the stubborn laces of the shapewear, the sudden release made me gasp. The fabric slipped from my skin like a curtain falling after a performance, and all at once, the reality of the evening washed over me. I'd loved it, the dress, the dancing, the strange confidence that came with becoming someone else. Even after I washed off the makeup and crawled into bed, my mind kept replaying flashes of the night. His smile, the lights, the feeling of being seen differently. By morning, sleep had barely touched me. I shuffled into the kitchen wrapped in my robe, hair a mess under the wig cap, mood somewhere between dazed and contemplative. Mom and Emily entered almost in sync, and the way they shared a glance before giggling made my stomach flip. Mom beamed at me and declared that I'd been absolutely precious, then admitted she had let John believe she had 2 daughters. And since he was coming at 11, I needed to be dressed accordingly. Instead of protesting, I just nodded. Somewhere between last night and dawn, resistance had loosened its grip on me. After breakfast, Emily whisked me upstairs. She handed me a pair of her jeans, soft and snug, and a pullover that fell differently across my shoulders than my usual clothes ever had. The shapewear slid back on like muscle memory. She fixed the wig with quick, practiced motions, while I reapplied makeup with a steadier hand than I expected. When John arrived, I looked composed on the outside, though my heart still lurched every time his eyes flicked my way. Mom and he left shortly after, and Emily wasted no time giving me that investigative stare again before asking why I had waited so long to start dressing as a girl. I offered my weak excuse, and she dismissed it instantly, calling it out for the paper-thin cover it was. She told me she'd watched my face the night before, watched the way I melted into Kevin's hold, how naturally I slipped into the rhythm of the night. She said it wasn't an act. Her words struck deeper than I expected. Before I could decide whether to argue or accept them, she suggested we go to the mall and finally build a wardrobe of my own. I found myself agreeing without hesitation. The mall was a blur of colors and fabrics, Emily darting ahead with a mission, while I trailed behind, caught between nerves and a strange budding excitement. She piled my arms with tops, skirts, jeans, softer than anything I'd worn in my life. I joked that it was far more than I'd need for 2 more days, but she only laughed and said nothing at all. By the time we walked out, I had a collection of high-quality magnetic studs for my ears that looked convincing enough to catch the light every time I moved. Back home, I hid in my room when Mom returned, not ready to face John again in any form. Monday morning hit like a slap. My regular jeans felt coarse, almost scratchy against my skin. I hadn't realized how tuned in I'd become to the feel of softer fabrics, lighter swishes, air brushing freely against my legs. I missed it more than I thought possible. The whole week dragged, each day reminding me of the gap between who I had been and who I had briefly become. By Thursday afternoon, I couldn't resist any longer. I slipped into Emily's room, heart thumping, and found the blue mini dress I knew would fit me just right. Preparing again felt natural, almost comforting a ritual I hadn't realized I'd been craving. I laid everything out for the next morning with careful precision, each piece like a quiet promise waiting for dawn. While Mom and I watched television, I attached the fake nails and painted them in a rose color. Mom said she would help me with the wig again, and that night, as I lay in bed, I just knew in my heart that I was going to shock a whole lot of people. I was up an hour earlier than usual, shaved, and sitting at the vanity doing my makeup when Mom came in. I drew on the eyeliner, outlined my eyes with the pencil, and stood up so she could fasten the bodice again. Then I went to my room and finished dressing. Then the mini dress. Mom secured the wig for me. I removed the magnetic studs and put in small hoop earrings, added a short gold chain with a pendant, the gold watch, and 2 rings Mom gave me. Some perfume, and then the pale rose lipstick. I made sure the purse had my wallet, school ID, and so on, added the lipstick, some tissue, and the small jar of foundation, grabbed my books, then drove to the school. As I parked the car, I saw spacemen and cowboys, ghosts and goblins, and a girl that walked an awful lot like a boy. I went into the school, stopped at my locker, and then went to my first class. So far, not one person looked at me funny, and I felt pretty good as I walked into class and sat down in my appointed place. Costumes populated the room, so the teacher always looked up as he called our names. When he called out my name and I answered him, all eyes fell on me, and the girl sitting next to me sucked in her breath. All the teacher did was smile and continue the class. On the way out of the room, a few girls told me I looked good as a girl, but none of the guys said a word, which Ashley said was because they thought I was more than nice looking, and that made them nervous. By lunchtime, I figured out who the other boy dressed as a girl was, and even saw him up close once. He looked like a boy in a dress. All he did was smile at me, and I am sure he never figured out who I really am. At lunch, Ashley joined me and asked me how I was going to dress for the big party the next day, so I described the black dress to her the best I could. Then she told me that she heard that a friend of hers was going to ask me to go with him to the party. I told her that would be the worst thing I could do and asked her to tell him to just see me at the party. By the time I got home that afternoon, I knew who it was that wanted me to go with him to the party. It was a good friend of mine. I started for my room to change when Mom said that John would be over in a few minutes, so I might as well wait until they left to change clothes. I sat on the couch watching television and waited. About 20 minutes later, he showed up, then surprised both Mom and me when he asked if I would join them for dinner. I quickly declined, but he insisted, saying it is a fancy place, so Mom and I went to change. I went into Emily's room, grabbed a nice pleated tan skirt, a brown pullover top, and her tan jacket, then went into my room and changed as quickly as I could. Luckily, my makeup was okay, and all I did was add lipstick before I went back downstairs. Mom was not there yet, so I sat across from him, hoping he did not figure out that I was a boy and not a girl. "Your mother says you are in high school, a senior," I think she said. "Yes, sir, Northwood High. My son goes there, maybe you know him, David Smith." That is the name of a classmate of mine. While Mom's footsteps echoed upstairs, I smoothed my skirt over my knees, trying to quiet the panic nibbling its way up my spine. John sat across from me comfortably, one ankle propped over the opposite knee, chatting with the easy confidence of a man who assumed everything in the room was exactly as it appeared. His attention felt like a spotlight I wasn't quite ready for, and yet I found myself responding without hesitation, my voice falling into that softer cadence I had been using all day. As he mentioned his son, something in his expression softened, and I realized he wasn't interrogating me, just making polite conversation, trying to bridge the gap between us. Still, every second felt like balancing on a wire suspended over a truth I wasn't sure I was ready for him to discover. I sat straighter, checking the fall of my hair, feeling the faint tug of the bodice beneath the pullover I'd changed into earlier, ensuring everything stayed in place. He smiled warmly, as though pleased we'd found common ground, and for a breath, I felt myself relax. Not entirely, never entirely, but enough to realize that his presence didn't threaten the fragile persona I wore. If anything, it tested how well I could live inside it. The front door clicked softly, and Mom appeared at the bottom of the stairs, in a navy dress that suited her so beautifully, it made John light up in an instant. She thanked me for waiting, then motioned for us to head out. As we walked toward the car, I felt oddly invisible, and visible at the same time, folded into their evening like I belonged there, but also acutely aware of the steps I took, the sway of the skirt, the whisper of nylons that still lingered in my imagination, even though I wasn't wearing them now. Dinner was elegant in a way that forced me to stay alert, every gesture deliberate. The clink of glassware, the soft conversation around us, the glow of candlelight flickering across polished surfaces, it all fed into the illusion I'd built, an illusion I was somehow holding steady. Each time John addressed me as Jessica, the name slid over me with a strange warmth, like something I could almost believe had always been mine. By the time the check arrived and we headed home, the tension in my chest had settled into a curious hum. I had walked through the entire evening without faltering, without being found out, without feeling out of place. And that frightened me more than discovery ever could have, because I wasn't sure anymore whether I wanted this feeling to stop. When we finally returned home and John drove off, I exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. Mom stepped inside 20 minutes later, her cheeks flushed from the cool air, and I pulled her straight to the kitchen. The truth spilled out of me, fast, who David was, how easily everything could unravel. She listened without panic, and when she finally answered, her calm nearly stunned me. She had already told him. He laughed, she said, and admitted his son had described me perfectly. Worse or better, he'd said I was pretty. Some part of me wanted to sink through the floor at that revelation. Another part lit up like someone had struck a match in my chest. John knew, yet treated me no differently, and that made my pulse settle in a new, surprising way. Mom kissed my forehead and sent me to bed with a promise of a morning surprise. Sleep came in uneven waves. My mind kept looping around what she'd said pretty until the word lost shape and became something softer, something that felt like possibility. The next morning, Mom set a box in front of me like she was unveiling treasure. Inside lay a wig the color of burnished autumn, fuller than the first one, styled in soft layers that brushed the shoulders with deliberate grace. Then came the dress, sleek, structured, and impossibly tiny at first glance. "It will fit," she assured me. "With help." The way she said it made my stomach flutter. Knowing I had the whole day to prepare, I slipped into a long bath, letting the scented water soak into my skin until the steam blurred the edges of the room. I shaved slowly, carefully, almost reverently, watching the transformation begin in the small, ordinary motions I'd once taken for granted. By mid-afternoon, Mom called me into action. I sat at Emily's vanity, the familiar ritual unfolding with steady hands. Foundation smoothed into a flawless surface, powder softening every line. The eyeshadow layered like sunrise green at the base, a shimmer of copper, a veil of silver gray blending out the edges. The liner swept bold and confident along my lids, while the pencil beneath added depth. The blush warmed my cheeks until they glowed faintly. Mom's praise drifted over my shoulder, light and genuine. I didn't know how to answer without revealing how proud it made me feel. Then came the moment of truth. The bodice closed around me with a series of clicks and pulls, each lace tightening until my breath came sharp and my figure reshaped itself. Mom tugged once more, firm and deliberate, sculpting my body into the silhouette the dress demanded. Hosiery slid up my legs in one smooth shimmer, sealing the transformation inch by inch. In Emily's room, the red polish gleamed as I painted each nail, my hands steady now, almost graceful. When the lacquer dried, Mom and I returned to my room in a quiet, shared anticipation, two women, preparing another for her debut. The dress is all white, a clingy material that hugged my abdomen tightly, flaring out at the hips and ending at mid-thigh on me. The top had two very thin spaghetti straps to hold up the low-cut front, shaped in a deep V that revealed a soft curve I still couldn't believe was mine. "I thought I was wearing the black one," I murmured, running my hand over the white fabric. "Trust me," Mom said with a wink. "This one is better. I loved it." Then Mom gave me a pair of bright red heels with an ankle strap. At first, bending over to fasten them felt impossible. The bodice refused to let me fold in half. But after a few awkward attempts, and Mom standing there laughing, like she'd just watched a comedy reel, I finally caught the tiny buckle and secured it. She insisted I do it myself, of course. Then came the wig. Mom fitted it snugly, tightening the drawstring, pinning it in place until it felt like part of me. When she brushed it out and stepped aside, I looked in the mirror and saw myself fully put together for the first time that day. The sight jolted me. I barely recognized the girl staring back, and yet there was something familiar in her eyes, like I'd caught a glimpse of a version of myself I hadn't known existed. "I would say that John's son David was right," Mom said. "Jessica, you are beautiful." The words rolled through my mind before Mom even finished speaking. I wanted to answer modestly, but nothing humble would have been true. I did look good, shockingly good, and it flickered through me like a thrill I didn't know how to contain. I knew I would turn heads at the party. Even the girls who lived for this kind of event, the ones who owned closets full of sparkles and heels, couldn't have manufactured this transformation on demand. Not like this. Not tonight. Mom handed me a red purse and a brand new wallet identical to hers. Without a word, she emptied my old wallet and passed me each item one by one, a quiet ceremony of shifting identities. Once everything was inside, I reapplied the red lipstick, filling out my lips until they matched the heels, bright, bold, impossible to ignore. The doorbell rang. Mom told me to stay put. While she answered, I hurried into Emily's room and added the finishing touches: perfume on my neck, elbows, wrists, the gold and red chandelier earrings, the matching choker, the gold watch, 2 rings. My nerves fluttered as I heard Mom call my name. I walked down the stairs slowly, every step measured, letting the dress drift around my legs like it had been made for this exact moment. When I reached the landing, I saw David and his father standing in the entryway. Both froze, mouths open, staring at me like their brains had dropped a gear. I took a breath and descended the rest of the way until I stood beside Mom. "Gentlemen, let me introduce Jessica." David tried to speak, but only managed a tangled, breathy greeting. His eyes shone with this warm astonishment that sent a tiny tremor through my chest. His father said nothing at all. He knew the truth, of course, but he wasn't even looking at me. His gaze was entirely on Mom, his intentions obvious. "John invited me out tonight, Jessica, and we thought it might be nice if David took you to the party," Mom said. "After all, you have only driven in heels once before." My mind spun. If David arrived with me looking like this, everyone would draw the same conclusion: that something romantic was happening, and I had no idea how to decline without sounding rude. So I smiled and hoped for the best. David, dressed as Superman, really leaned into it. The costume suited him perfectly: broad shoulders, bright colors, everything sharp and confident. He offered me his hand. I hesitated a heartbeat before taking it, and he led me to his car. Mom and John waved as we pulled out of the driveway. For a few minutes, the car stayed quiet except for the hum of the engine. David kept sneaking glances at me, and each time I adjusted my dress, his eyes flicked down, then away. "I told Dad you looked good the other day," he said finally. "But tonight—" Wow. "David, I am a boy, remember." "Maybe," he said, shrugging lightly, "but you sure do not look it. In fact, you look better than any girl I know. All the kids are going to think we're a couple, you know that. So I am a boy. We cannot have anything going." He glanced over again, his eyes steady this time, thoughtful in a way I wasn't prepared for. "You still look beautiful, Jessica, and that is enough for me." It was starting to sound like a scene from Some Like It Hot, so I gave up just about the time he pulled into the parking lot. David was out of the car before I could even think about it, opening my door with this earnest, old-fashioned politeness that felt almost rehearsed. I had no choice but to take his hand as I stepped out, my heels wobbling slightly until I found my balance. He reached for my arm, clearly wanting to escort me inside like we were arriving at prom, but I shot him a look sharp enough to slice through his enthusiasm. He backed off immediately, hands raised in surrender, though a crooked smile tugged at his mouth. The gym was cloaked in darkness, colored lights flickering over streamers and balloon clusters hanging from the rafters. Fog machines huffed puffs across the floor. A low thump of spooky music vibrated through the crowd as we made our way toward the drink table. And then Ashley spotted me. She floated over in a sparkling Cinderella gown, did a double take, and dragged me a few steps away from David. "Damn, Jessica, I thought you looked good the other day. I think I will just go kill myself." "And I thought you said the black dress?" "Mom's idea," I said, smoothing the white fabric. She surprised me. "Well, she was right. It's stunning. It is only for today, Ashley, then back to my old self." "Why do I not think so?" "What?" "You are not going to give this up. Look at you. Every guy in here is staring, trying to figure out who you are and how fast they can ask you out." She flicked her gaze toward David, who was watching us like a guard dog in a cape. "Like him. Superman there sees his Lois in you. Did you not come in together? His dad and my mom are dating. They thought it would be cute if he and I came together." "You could do worse, Jessica. He is kind of cute." "Ashley, I am a boy, remember?" "Not tonight, Jessica. Tonight you are one beautiful lady. Before I could respond, she glided away, leaving me standing there just as David reappeared at my elbow, like he had been waiting for his cue. A slow song began, and without hesitation, he slipped his arms around my waist and guided me onto the dance floor. I froze for half a second, but didn't make a scene. He moved well smooth, practiced, and his hands communicated everything. The steps, the turns, the confidence he seemed to carry naturally. Little by little, I relaxed into the rhythm. The music wrapped around us, soft and warm, blurring the rest of the gym into shadows. But the moment the song ended, someone tapped David's shoulder. Our class president. Before I knew what was happening, he cut in and swept me across the floor, just as the next song started. Ashley says I know you. She is right, you do. But I am not sure I want to tell you. Tell me anyway. I whispered it, and he jerked back, eyes wide. Then he shook his head firmly. No way. I know a girl when I see one, and you are a girl. He refused to believe the truth no matter how many times I said it. Eventually, I gave up. And right then, David cut in again, shooting the president a look that said mine before guiding me back into the music. As the evening rolled on, more boys asked me to dance, far more than I could handle. Every time a new hand reached toward me, I felt a tight knot in my stomach. What would happen when they learned who I really was? Would they feel tricked, angry, betrayed? Then Lisa drifted over in a silver gown, smiling politely. Ashley says I know you, but I do not remember your name, sorry. Oh, you know me, Lisa. Think about it. It took only my voice to unlock the memory. Her eyes flew open wide, shock slamming through her expression, before she burst into delighted laughter. I will be damned! You look gorgeous! And by the number of guys asking you to dance, they think so too. They will be disappointed. Jessica will be gone tomorrow morning. Lisa looked at Ashley, who had reappeared beside her, and both shook their heads slowly. They said nothing, but their silence spoke loudly enough. Since there was no judging for best costume, I never took off my wig. That left half the school believing I was a girl, and honestly, watching them try to guess my identity was both terrifying and weirdly fun. David returned just as another slow song began. He took my hand gently, as though asking permission without words, then slid his arms around me again. We drifted into the music, and for a few minutes, everything else disappeared. By the time the song ended, I could feel him holding me closer than before, closer than necessary. And when he subtly shifted his stance, the message was unmistakable. A teacher announced the party was over, so David took my hand again as we walked out of the gym. This time, I did not pull away. About halfway to the car, he slipped his arm around me and drew me closer. And by the time we turned onto my street, he eased the car to a stop. My heart pounded, not from fear, but from knowing exactly what he wanted, and not knowing at all what I would do. So many people thought I was a girl. So many thought I was pretty. And the truth none of them knew was that I had started to like it too, maybe more than I should have. David killed the engine. The silence between us tightened like a string. He leaned in first. His grin, warm and certain, flickered in the faint light as his arm slid behind my shoulders. I didn't resist. When his lips brushed mine, my breath caught, and then, without thinking, I leaned into him, kissing him back. His hand found my waist, slow and deliberate, pulling me closer until my heartbeat drowned out the world. My mind screamed to stop, to pull away, to remember who I was. My heart ignored every warning. I broke the kiss first, breathless, and pointed toward my house, speechless, overwhelmed. He walked me to the door, hesitant now, almost shy, and asked softly if we could go out again. David, I am a boy, just like you. Regardless of what just happened, the answer is no. It would never work out. I slipped inside before he could say anything else. Mom was waiting in the hall, arms crossed but eyes gentle. Let me help you with that bodice, Jessica. You can tell me how the evening went. By the time I got to the part where he stopped the car, my emotions were all tangled threads. Mom kissed my shoulder, told me to get some sleep, and left me standing there in pieces. What a night! What a revelation! I discovered I liked dressing as a girl. I was good at it too. Better than good, unsettlingly natural. And if I wanted dates, well, I would not have lacked volunteers. The next day, I forced myself back into my old clothes, like armor. I was terrified that if I became Jessica again so soon, I might never want to stop. Mom watched silently, but she didn't push me. I drifted through the day, restless and unfocused, haunted by the way David kissed me, and by the unbearable truth that I wasn't ashamed of it. School dragged. Conversations felt hollow. Life looked dull around the edges, as if someone had turned the brightness down after I saw what it felt like to live in color. Then, Thursday morning came. I opened my closet and froze. Half the space was filled with skirts, blouses, dresses, a suit. My drawer held the undergarments, pantyhose, accessories. Both wigs sat waiting on the shelf like two versions of my reflection staring down at me. I found Mom, heart pounding. Before I could speak, she gestured for me to sit. "You have been moody and curt, your schoolwork has fallen, and you do not eat right. All of this started the day you became a boy again. I think you should try it again, maybe only on weekends. The clothes in your closet are yours." And David called. "He wants to take you to the show on Saturday." I stared at her, silently begging for any sign telling me to refuse. But Mom simply stood and walked into the family room, leaving the decision in my hands. I looked at the dresses, felt the fabrics, the softness, the promise in every color and cut. The wigs waited patiently, like they knew what choice I would make. Later, David called again. And I said yes. He never admitted that I was a boy, and I stopped wasting breath trying to correct him. His attraction was real, and my resistance was not. After the show, Lisa spotted us at the burger place. One look at her grin, and I knew she had been right from the very start. I could not give up Jessica now. Emily returned to college. I became Jessica every Friday after school. The rhythm settled into my life like a second heartbeat. That party had opened a door I didn't even know existed, and once I stepped through it, there was no going back. Mom and I grew closer. She and John did too. She said he and David talked about our dating, but the rest was up to us. At Christmas, my new vanity arrived a silent, gleaming affirmation that my world had changed. Now I sit in front of it, brushing on my makeup for the New Year's party. David will be here in half an hour. My new dress hangs on the closet door, shimmering like a challenge I can't ignore. I should leave now, he'll be knocking any minute. And tonight feels different. Like something is about to happen. Something that will change everything all over again. I will tell you how it ends when I figure it out myself.